Hi, my name is Nathan. You're watching Nice at Dice, and today I'm taking a bit of a look back at the previous year, 2020, and I wanted to highlight 3 games that I really enjoyed playing this past year. So they were really highlights of my gaming hobby this past year. They weren't brand new games that just released last year, but they were all in one way or another new to me this past year. So I just wanted to shine a spotlight on them. The first game that I want to talk about is this game, Century. This is Century Eastern Wonders. There's also 2 other games in the series, Century Spice Road and Century A New World. I actually have all 3 games in the series here in this one box. And I had played all 3 games before in previous years, but this year I finally sat down and I played through all 3 games again. And then I played through all the different combinations of those 3 games, because you can combine any game with any one other game, and you can combine all 3 games together. So that was a really fun experience for me, playing through all of them, kind of being able to really get familiar with the different mechanisms of each of these 3 games and the different ways to combine those mechanisms. And what it boiled down to for me was that if you combine Century A New World, which is the 3rd game, with either the first game or the second game, that is where it's at. That's a really cool, that makes for a really fun experience, combining the 3rd game with either of the other 2 games. So basically, they're all 3 about trading in different historical periods. The first one is all about like hand management. The second one is about basically building routes across the board. And then the 3rd one is a worker placement game. So combining that worker placement with either the hand management or the building routes, either one of those is a really fun combination that makes for a really fun game. And it was also just nice to be able to take like a series of games like this and work my way through them and really get to know the series well over a course of a few weeks of play sessions. So that was my number 3 out of these top 3. So my number 2 is this game. It's a game called Hotshots. It's a cooperative wildfire fighting game. It's a relatively simple game as far as mechanisms go, and it can be fairly easy. Although there are a lot of different ways you can adjust the difficulty to ramp it up or tune it down for younger players, and so I really like that about the game. And I really just like the theme a lot. The idea of firefighters fighting wildfires is something that's fascinated me since I was a kid, and I've often thought about creating such a game myself. When I was like in my early teens, I was into computer programming, and I sort of toyed around with creating a computer game about that. And then more recently, I had toyed with the idea of creating a board game on that theme. And so when I saw this game, I was really excited to see that somebody else had done that. They had taken that theme of fighting wildfires and they had made a game. I played it. I was thoroughly satisfied with it. The only drawback to the game, as far as I'm concerned, is I feel like there is room for an expansion. The game that you get in the box is fine, but I just feel like there's room for different player roles and other things you could add to the game. I actually developed a fan expansion using some of my own ideas and other ideas that I found from people online. And so if you're interested in that fan expansion, there'll be a link in the description of this video to a video where I talk more about that and tell you exactly where you can go to download the files for that fan expansion if you want to print it out yourself and see what that's like. I also did a full review of Hotshots, and I did a full review of all the different Century games, so I'll put links to those in the description of this video. A game I have not yet reviewed is my number 1 experience from 2020, and that is this game, Path of Light and Shadow. This is a really cool game. I've been able to play it at all player counts, 2, 3, or 4 players. I've played it multiple times, and I still want to play it more, which to me is really exciting. So often I play a game and I think, well, that was an interesting experience, but I don't really feel compelled to play it again. Like, maybe if somebody suggested it, I wouldn't turn it down, but it's rare to find a game that I play it, and even after a few plays, I still feel like I want to play this game again. I'm ready to play it again at the drop of a hat. Path of Light and Shadow is that. Now, again, this isn't a full review. I will be making a full review, so I don't want to go too much into what makes this game so terrific, but basically, just to summarize, you and the other players are trying to control territories on a map. So you have that element of the game. You have a guy, you're moving around the map, and you're trying to conquer these different territories. You can conquer the territories that are as of yet unclaimed. You can also compete with the other players for control of the territories. Combat involves dice, but it also involves cards, and it's a nice mix of the two. So you do have some randomness. It's not totally deterministic, but you also feel like you can mitigate some of that randomness with the card play. So that's pretty cool. Cards are very important in this game. It is also a deck builder. Each player has their own deck of cards that they're building up over the course of the game. Everybody's deck starts out a little bit different from everyone else's deck, so that's kind of cool. But then as you play through the game, you're going to be adding cards to your deck that are going to make it really unique to you. You can also upgrade the cards in your deck. So not only are you adding cards, taking out the weaker cards that you maybe started with, but you're also upgrading the cards, replacing cards with stronger cards. So at least 3 different ways you can manipulate the contents of your deck there. So that's really cool. You also have a player board that has these different structures on it that you can build. And those are basically like constant ongoing effects that you benefit from every turn, regardless of the cards that are moving through your hand. So yeah, it has all those things, and the way it balances those things really provides for an interesting variety of strategies. It's a game where you can be really cutthroat and kind of go after each other, but it's also balanced in a way where if you are playing with less aggressive players who don't like direct confrontation, you can mostly avoid direct confrontation if that's your preference. So I like that balance too, because I can go for direct confrontation, but I don't mind playing a really chill game where you kind of just try to run your own engine and try and score as many points as you can without messing with the other players. So I like that it has that ability to balance that. You could do a little bit of both, or you could go really one way or the other. Lots of cool things about this. I also like that it's kind of a fantasy setting, but it's really not your typical fantasy setting. There's no elves or dwarves or wizards or anything like that. The theme is not super strong in the game, but what theme is there is at least unique. It's different than your typical fantasy game. So, in any case, those are my top 3 gaming experiences from 2020. Again, number 3 was the Century series, all 3 of those games and their combinations. Really fun to play through all that. Number 2 was Hotshots, and number 1, Path of Light and Shadow. Again, my name is Nathan. You're watching Nice at Dice. Thank you so much for watching, and you enjoy the rest of your day.